Broadcasting from the campus of Salisbury University, this is WSDL Ocean City, NPR News Talk 90.7, putting Delmarva first. It's time for Delmarva Today with your host, Don Rush.
Former Delegate Heather Mizeur has just gotten off a run for governor last year in the Democratic Party, and she's now considering a run for the Senate seat that we left vacant next year with the retirement of Barbara Mikulski. Welcome to Delmarva Today. This is Don Rush. She came to campus of Salisbury University to commemorate the Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network's National Day of Silence that is aimed at ending bullying and harassment of members of the LGBT community, and she joins us this morning. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Don.
Well, before we get to why you're here, what was your reaction to the religious freedom business with Indiana and Arkansas, the efforts to expand this to individuals, and the backlash that occurred?
Yeah, it was. It's always unfortunate anytime legislators try to use the law to take rights away from people, and that's just fundamentally anti-American, and the backlash was because of that. We are operating in a world now that has grown to respect and appreciate the dignity of every person and every relationship, and we don't want to live in a world where businesses are allowed to discriminate against anyone. This wasn't just backlash on behalf of standing up for LGBT rights. It was backlash for discrimination against anyone. And it was heartening to see the governor of Arkansas see what happened in Indiana and stand in the way of allowing similar legislation to move through in his state. Fortunately, here in Maryland, we've not had to worry about that because we've always stood on the side of fairness and equality in Maryland.
By the way, were you surprised at how quickly there was this backlash, particularly from the business community? And why do you think, say, a governor like Pence didn't realize it was going to come at him?
Well, I never like to assume anything or try to pretend that I know what's in anyone's head. Politically, one might suggest that the governor was responding to a base of supporters in the social conservative side of the Republican Party in his state without thinking through the larger perspective of the black eye that this would create on Indiana being seen as a state that is okay with discriminating against people. And it's not okay to refuse to serve anyone anymore. This is 2015. We went through a very dark period in our country where businesses were allowed to discriminate based on the color of someone's skin. And thankfully, we fought hard and long to make sure that we're not there anymore, and that's something that carries forward for everyone. We're not going to discriminate against people, not just if you're a Fortune 500 company, but also if you're a small business. This is America. Everyone deserves to be protected equally under the law.
So what do you make of the fact that we've got a situation now where just in 2004, we had the opposition to gay marriage being an important ingredient to the reelection of George W. Bush? Now here we are over 10 years later, and this role seemed to be reversed. What do you see in terms of this cultural war that we seem to have at least come out of the 1990s with?
It's been fascinating to be in the middle of it. My wife and I got married in Maryland without any legal rights in 2005. We stood with 100 of our closest friends and family and a leader in our faith and pledged vows to forever. And understanding that marriage is about who you love and that you're making a commitment to each other to enjoy each other's fun times, shoulder burdens, divide up responsibilities, and that the protection that's there under the law is for when times get really tough and challenging, when you need to make life and death medical decisions, if you're going to be able to ride in an ambulance together, if a partner is to die, can you claim the body? Are you going to be protected in inheritance proceedings? Most of the protections that come along with marriage are to protect a relationship when tragedy strikes. And yet what was happening for so long was an effort through those laws to try to prohibit LGBT families from coming together to begin with, but they can't stop us from loving each other. All they can do is make it really hard and challenging in the tough times. Now, when Deborah and I said that we were pledging to forever in 2005, we did it in Maryland in part because we wanted to make a stand on working hard to make sure that one day our state would protect our family and families like ours. We had no idea that it would be done so quickly. The movement has been dramatic, and our generation can't take all the credit. A lot of the support and shift in this has been from generations younger than us. I can tell you in the House of Delegates, where we came very close to winning one in 2011 and had to come back and actually hold the vote in 2012. In the intervening months between those two legislative sessions, I had a number of colleagues tell me very deep personal stories where their high school and college-age children had conversations with them that said, Mom or Dad, and whatever the case may be, I'm really embarrassed that you're not going to be for equality. You're on the wrong side of history on this one. And it was through the conversations with their children that they began to understand this issue differently, and they were able to start seeing through the eyes of love rather than the eyes of fear. And now we have 37 states that recognize and protect same-sex couples. And I think we'll, before long, be in a place where that's across the board, because in the states where they've actually banned it, it's being turned over in the courts and under appeals process, and we're making really, really great progress.
Tell me a little bit about your story and how you came to grips with who you were and coming out. What was that like?
It was very challenging. I grew up in a small rural community of 1,100 people. Everyone knows everyone, and I grew up in a generation and a period of time where being openly gay wasn't acceptable. That hearing slurs like faggot and dyke on the school bus was something that was regular occurrence, and it made you want to hide who you were. And I also was struggling from a religious perspective, and I noted this in my floor speech on marriage equality, that I don't hold it against anyone who struggles coming to terms with this issue, because I, as a lesbian woman, even struggled coming to terms. I was a deeply spiritual, religious Catholic woman, and also openly gay, or at that point closeted, and trying to reconcile how to be okay with being gay. And for me, my coming out story and bringing those two pieces together was sitting and realizing that every time I felt bad about being gay, it was because somebody outside of myself was telling me that it was wrong. It was somebody in community and society, in the media, within church infrastructure. But anytime I spent time with myself, my own conscience, my own relationship with God, to really discern who I was and what I was about, the messages that I always got back was, you're made in my image. You're perfect as you are. Love your neighbor as yourself. Don't judge. When I looked at it as an internal issue instead of an external one, I come to understand my own truth. And my own truth wasn't just that I was an openly gay woman. My own truth was that I also had discerned this with my conscience and with my God, and was very, very comfortable being able to reconcile being both Catholic and being gay. And so I came out when I was in college, when I kind of came to that place of recognizing and ending my own internal struggle. And that's why it's so important, and that's why we've seen so much advancement come forward, because people aren't being silent about their own truth anymore. And when we speak to that and we connect with people about who we really are and show that I'm the same person that you loved yesterday, Mom and Dad. I haven't changed. Nothing about me is different, other than you now know I will choose to be in a relationship or not with someone that may not be the person you had in mind for me, but I'm going to be happy and I'm going to be fulfilled. And ultimately, as a parent, that's what you want for me, right? And it's a journey for everyone. Everyone comes from a different place. But I think it's helped to see over time, when marriage equality first happened in Massachusetts, the sky didn't fall. Nobody is wanting to change the right of a church to have its own teaching and set its own rules over who will and will not have what kind of marriages they'll recognize. We just want to make sure that as far as the state house goes, where we're all taxpayers and there are rights and responsibilities granted through a marriage license, that be taken care of for everyone, regardless of what family you're being raised in.
Now, growing up, did you experience bullying? Did you experience harassment? What was your personal experience with that? Did people suspect, or were you accused of being? I mean, what was that like?
Well, I always had a boyfriend, so I wasn't entirely accused of being. But there were things that when somebody would want to say something negative towards me, that would come out sometimes. I was a star athlete in my school, and I also volunteered for a local politician that some people thought might be a lesbian as well, and so guilty by association. I wasn't bullied in the way that I know so many other of our teens have had to deal with in terms of external bullying. I did have a decent amount of my own self-hatred related to it, though, which is another form of bullying I think we have to recognize.
Explain that.
Well, when you're deep in the closet, and I'm hoping this is shifting as our relationship in society to LGBT people have shifted, but when I was a kid, it wasn't accepted, it wasn't okay, and to both know that I was and try to deny who I was, try to be something else, not be true to myself, and internalize society's disgust, hatred, telling you that it's not okay. To internalize all of that makes you hate yourself in some ways, hate that about you. Just recently, I was cleaning out my attic and I came across my yearbooks. And I saw something in myself that I was really surprised and shocked at, because I'm a really positive person and I try to love everyone and love everything. And I saw some ugliness that I had written in my own yearbook over the pictures of a PE teacher who was presumed to be a lesbian. And I had forgotten how much I joined in on talking bad about her behind her back with other kids. And it wasn't because I really felt that way towards her. It was a self-protection mechanism to say, well, if I'm making fun of her, no one will think that I'm gay then. But it was also, I was willing to do that and kind of cross my own conscience because of not loving myself fully in that moment. And this is the shift that we're starting to create in our community when we start to love and embrace our children fully, completely, for whoever they are, no matter who they love. The community that I represent, or used to represent in the General Assembly, Tacoma Park, is such a beautiful place because it's a community that before it was okay to be gay, it was okay to be gay. When I was knocking on doors, when I ran for the city council in 2002, I had a woman tell me at the doors that she thought I was the best candidate in the race, but she was going to vote for the other candidate because he was Latino and she wanted to support diversity. And I told her how much I respected that being a consideration and not to take anything away from what he brings to the table from that perspective of diversity, but I wanted her to know that I was an openly gay candidate and a diverse candidate as well. And she started laughing and she said, "Oh, sweetheart, this is Tacoma Park. Being gay doesn't count as diversity anymore." And you know, it really has been a wonderful community to transition from going from, you know, a small town place where it wasn't okay to being in a community where it's embraced. But then over the course of the last decade, watching the entire state of Maryland embrace this in a different way.
Now, you was particularly coming here because of the bullying issue. I was looking at some of the stats, and it says that gay and lesbian teens are 2 to 3 times more likely to be bullied and rather to commit suicide, and that they've been bullied. How serious is this for young teens now?
It's incredibly serious. It's one of the reasons why the It Gets Better campaign was started a couple years ago. It's easy when you're a teen. All of us can remember the angst of being a teen and thinking, turning the drama of your emotions and your experience into this all-encompassing no-win situation. And when you compound that with concerns, frustration, self-hatred about being gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, when you're worried about your sexual orientation or your gender identity and how and whether the world around you is going to embrace you for just being who you are, it's easy to feel like there's no way out but that. And that's what we're working against. And we're starting to, I think, make real strides in helping to shift that culture, both from a larger society that is evolving in a more holistic way to embrace the core of everyone, no matter who they are, no matter who they love, but also from peer-to-peer support where it's not as challenging. I'm not going to say, and I don't know what it's like to be a teen anymore. I do know and have talked to enough teens to know that it is better than when I was a teen. And when I was a teen, it was better than when my parents' generation were teens. We're constantly evolving and making strides. But I don't know that we're ever going to be at a place where this doesn't have to be a concern. We all should be vigilant about spreading the message of how important it is to watch what we say, not just to LGBT teens, to everybody. Our words carry so much power, so much meaning, and can devastate people in ways that we can't even imagine. And when we embrace someone, everyone, from a place of love rather than fear, we're going to have a much better, stronger world.
What do you say to, or what recommendation do you give to, say, teachers, for instance, who find situations where for instance, a teen maybe will be bullied because he's gay? I read about one instance in which the teachers struggle between, on the one hand, trying to deal with the harassment, on the other hand, trying to stick up for the rights of the particular teen. And they really found this a difficult process. What recommendation do you have?
Most teens going through this situation, if they're seeking out an authority figure to have a conversation with, the first thing that they're looking for more than anything else is unconditional love. That's something they're not giving themselves in the moment, and it's something that they fear everyone around them is unwilling to offer, whether it's their parents, their guardians, their religious leaders, teachers. They're looking for someone in authority to give them a hug, to hold them, tell them it's okay, that they are perfect just as they are, and that it gets better. And that unconditional love is the most important piece, and then you build from there.
By the way, finally, so are you going to run for U.S. Senate?
I was going to correct that before
But
the segment was over.
Yes.
I did announce last week that I am not going to run for the Senate, not because it wasn't something I was uninterested in. I definitely took a long pause to consider it. To carry on the legacy of Barbara Mikulski's work in the United States Senate would be a great honor. And the supporters that were behind my enthusiastic run for governor last year spoke strongly, encouraging me to get in this race. And ultimately, while I decided I would really enjoy the job, the work, I didn't want to have to audition for it for the next 2 years. I'm still recovering from having given it my all in a grueling statewide race, less than a year ago, and not quite at the place where I have the capacity to give of myself in such a big way again. So I'm passing on this opportunity, but will forever stay engaged in the issues that matter most to me.
You're going to run for elective office again, you think?
I have no idea. I'm very, very comfortable embracing the unknowing and just letting life unfold as it should.
And you optimistic, by the way, about the state and its direction? Obviously, we have a Republican governor, but
I'm always optimistic about Maryland because we are a great state full of amazing, talented people that will always rise to the occasion. This legislative session that is ending this evening, tonight is the last night of the 90-day legislative session, has been somewhat rocky one. A lot of budget contention between the legislature and the governor's office, even though the legislature itself has been in remarkable agreement. The House passed a compromise bipartisan budget with 129 votes. The Senate passed the same budget unanimously. Strong bipartisan consensus on how to put together a consensus budget, and then the governor's office has been working to reject that approach. So it's been there's been some frustrating and also some bright lights of cooperation happening in the legislature. And as I say, Maryland will always come around to doing the right thing.
Quickly, do you miss it?
It's a complicated question. I'm very much enjoying more time with my family. I'm farming here on the Eastern Shore. My wife and I have a 34-acre farm in Kent County in Chestertown, and it's kind of hard to beat that life. But I also always love having the opportunity to have a seat at the table, make a difference on the issues that I care deeply about, and try to create community transformation. But as I've always known, you don't have to be elected in office to be able to make that kind of impact. And so I'm real happy with where I am right now.
We've been speaking with former delegate Heather Mizeur, and she's decided not to run for the U.S. Senate, but no doubt we'll still keep engaged. And we appreciate, by the way, you stopping by and talking with us.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you, Don.
This has been Delmarva Today. I'm Don Rush. Thanks for listening.
This has been Delmarva Today, a production of Delmarva Public Radio. Chris Rank produces and is our audio engineer. Don Rush is your host. For podcasts, visit our website, delmarvapublicradio.net, or subscribe to the Delmarva Today podcast in iTunes. Delmarva Today can now be seen on PAC 14. To view the schedule, visit the Daily Times or visit pac14.org.